New York's classic rock, Q1043.
Good morning, and I want to introduce you to, well, one of them should pretty much be a household name. He certainly is a hero on so many levels. Former Port Authority police officer Will Jimeno. Now, if the name sounds familiar, that's because Will was one of only two people pulled from the wreckage of the World Trade Center close to 20 years ago. Both of them Port Authority cops. And also joining me this morning, Charles Ricciardi. And the reason they are both joining me, both are fathers, but the reason both are joining me this morning is that they have a wonderful book out, which is really aimed at children. It's called Immigrant, American Survivor, a little boy who grew up to be all three. And it's really the story, the life story of Will. Now, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. Charles, how did you come into this picture? I mean, I get that this is Will's story and he wants to tell it to children for so many reasons, but what about your involvement?
Well, I had written and illustrated a couple of children's books independently, and Will was at a town function where my sister lives in New Jersey, and he was interested in putting together his story for children, and but didn't quite know how to do it, and he wanted to talk to someone about it. So my sister and my brother-in-law recommended me, and so Will and I just began talking about children's books and really talking shop on how I did the first two that I worked on and what he might want to do for his. And we just had a really great conversation. We hit it off. And it kind of stopped right there because we weren't necessarily going to go forward. But when the pandemic hit, and I started drawing more and thinking more. I was thinking about Will's project, and I reached back out to him. I would love to help with him with the book. So that we began in probably October of last year.
So the pandemic was sort of a blessing in that it, enabled you to do it at that time when everything else shut down. Our lives just changed so dramatically. Will, I know you're coming out in August with a book that is aimed at adults, which is really the story not only of that horrible day on September 11th, but your recovery after and your PTSD and just being so open and honest about all this. Why did you want to write a children's book?
Well, first, thanks for having us on here. And the answer to that's children and parents kept asking me for years, you should have a children's book out. When I do all my speaking engagements at lower grade schools, they would always ask me, you should have a book out because it's a really good story for children. And people would ask me, and again, I was at that function with his sister and his brother-in-law, and actually his brother-in-law said, you really should have a kid's book. So again, how am I going to do this? I don't really know how to do this. And that's when he and his wife, Charles' sister, suggested me contacting him, which we did. And it flourished from there. And it really took a life on its own. I wasn't really planning on doing a children's book. But once I connected with Charles and he told me, hey, give me your idea. And he drew up the cover. It came to life. And, I couldn't have done this without Charles. His illustrations are amazing. The collaboration between him and me and my wife, who's also helped us, has been great. And the book is out for sale on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's getting great reviews, especially from kids. That's what I really it means the world to me, because this book has so many good lessons from acceptance to overcoming bullying, going for your dreams, overcoming tragedy, and never giving up. So that's where the book came from, is really from kids and parents who kept asking me. So it wasn't something that I was really focusing on. I really was focusing on my other book that comes out in August, which I'm proud to say we're pretty much wrapping up. It'll be ready to go by sometime early August, mid-August. And I'm so proud of this book. We did it in English and Spanish, which is a great thing because it's addressing a lot of children out toward the West. I have teachers out in Arizona and said, we have a lot of Spanish speaking kids here, and they were born here and they want to be Americans, but they're still kind of getting broken in with their families and situations there. And they're like, this book is so good that they've been ordering out there. And so we're very proud of the book. It's a beautiful book. You can see from the cover, which will show eventually, how patriotic it is. And again, we're all immigrants. We all come from different parts of the world to make this beautiful country that we love, America, great. And bringing all these different heritages in has been something that has made us the greatest country on earth. And we're very proud of it.
The book is Immigrant, American Survivor, a little boy who grew up to be all three. What is the age range you are focusing on? Because a lot of this is really difficult. And I was thinking about this. I think I don't know of another 9/11 children's book. There may be one out there specifically aimed toward children. Of course, this is not just 9/11, it's so much more. But what's the age range?
Charles, you
Well,
want to take that?
yeah, we really are focusing on third, fourth, and fifth grade level students, reading level. We wanted to make a story, and by the way, I just have to say, with Will as a person, not only what he went through as a first responder and his bravery, but just as an individual and what he's been through, and every lesson that we talked about and in the book, I just agree with so wholeheartedly, and it just fits so well with me. It's been such a labor of love. So I think the story is so beneficial for a lot of reasons. We're talking about children who come from different places, who may not look like everybody else, who have trouble fitting in. Possibly, we touch upon bullying issues, and it's really about following your dreams and never giving up. And I think the important part is, to talk about the day of 9/11 in a way that is not is something that children, in a way that children can hear it, and with the right kinds of pictures and the right storytelling, so they get the importance of it and they're not scared by it.
Anything to add, Will, to that?
Well, just going back to your question, as the age group we were aiming for, and like Charles said, we're looking at 3 to 5th graders, but the feedback we're getting is even 2nd graders love the book. And it's amazing because, we're probably thinking, oh my God, it's 9/11. It's for us that lived through it, it's a very touchy subject, but we're talking to a whole new generation of kids. And these kids are way more advanced than we were, right? With their phones and social media. They don't look upon death the way we did as kids. They really, you got all the video games. The feedback I'm getting is the kids are intrigued by it, and the teachers that are using the book right now. That's the main thing for me. It's opening up a lot of questions, and the kids are fascinated by it. I think it's the same as us thinking about Pearl Harbor. We had a lot of questions about it. What happened? So we have found that not only 3rd through 5th graders like this book, everybody likes the book, from parents to teachers to older kids. I've had high school kids read it and say, Mr. Jimeno, this is such an awesome book. And that's what we're proud of. We're aiming it for 3 to 5th. We want to get them there, but we've had people tell us that 2nd graders who are reading nowadays have found the book to be interesting and opens up their minds.
This should really be required reading in schools, as far as I'm concerned. And the thought just hit me. I know it's available on Amazon and available in both languages, but I can see this being sold around the world. This is a story that resonates with humankind. Has there been any discussion about taking this global?
Well, it's so funny you said that. I just, of course, the anniversary of 9/11 is coming up, and I know myself and my sergeant, John McLoughlin, get a lot of requests for interviews. I just did one this past Friday with a French documentary team, and they were really intrigued by the book. And I said, I don't have it in French. I said, but luckily, American is the English language. I know a lot of French people speak English. They loved it. They said, this is a book that, like you said, it resonates globally. We'll see where we go from here. We're just starting out. We're getting it out there. Right now, I know we have it at the Department of Education in New York. Hopefully, someone will put eyes on it, especially in New York. I mean, for all the kids, this has so much good lessons. Yes, it teaches about 9/11, but it also teaches about overcoming things, And, you know, we're still struggling with this pandemic. I know we're coming out of it, but it has affected children in such a way that, again, my nephew just is elated that he's going to be able to go back to school. And think about it, when we were kids, we were trying to get out of school.
Right.
You know, you realize the importance of school. And when you're young, you just start thinking. But we're hoping. We're hoping. And, you know, thank you so much for those kind words. We hope that it will go global. We hope that it helps many, many children. I've done interviews with Guatemala because I have a cousin out there. I'm going to be doing interviews in Colombia. And what I like about that is that even people from other countries, they see the American flag on the cover. They know what the story is about. They just love the patriotism. And that's what the French documentary person told me. She goes, you know what I love about you? And I said, what? She goes, I love your passion for your country. And I said to her, I said, you know, I think every single person, whatever country they live in, they should have a passion for their country. My passion is America. I bring my Colombian heritage, but I think, and I said to her, I said, you know, as a French person, you should be very proud to be French. Everybody should be proud from where they came from. And if you're going to come to the United States, bring that being proud from your country. But if you're going to live here, you're going to take that heritage and make our country better, because that's what makes us the beacon of hope in the world.
On this Father's Day, I am speaking to two dads, very special dads. One is retired Port Authority police officer Will Jimeno. He was one of two people pulled from the wreckage of the World Trade Center close to 20 years ago. The other person, a sergeant for the Port Authority Police. So two Port Authority police officers rescued and immortalized in the Oliver Stone movie World Trade Center. And also with me, Charles Ricciardi, who illustrated and co-wrote a children's book with Will. It's called Immigrant, American Survivor, a little boy who grew up to be all three, and you can get it on Amazon. So Will, let's start in the beginning. Your first challenge in life is that you were how old when your parents brought you here from Colombia?
I was 2 years old. We came into John F. Kennedy Airport, but we settled in Hackensack, New Jersey. So 12 miles outside New York City, I could see the skyline of New York City. So grew up watching, you know, those towers my whole life.
And it was interesting to me that it was when a 9/11 call was made on your behalf when you fell in love with the idea of being a first responder. Tell us that story.
Well, ever since a little boy, I was influenced a lot by television. You know, back when there was only a certain amount of channels, you know, 2, 5, 9, you know, and I would always watch the war movies. I was always watching, you know, The Blue Knight, you know, Adam 12. And I fell in love with helping people. That's something that I know I get from my mother. She just loves to help people. And I just was always influenced by the Hackensack Police Department where I grew up. They were very professional looking. I did in the book, which you'll read, I actually did knock myself out. I fell down some stairs. I remember the first responder was a Hackensack police officer. When I woke up, you know, here was this tall gentleman in official looking uniform, being very kind. And I just felt like, you know, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to help people. And as I grew, I just became more passionate about giving back to the community, giving back to my country. So, you know, after high school, I went into the military, U.S. Navy, served there for 4 years, came out, and then started pursuing my dream of becoming a police officer. And I was fortunate enough to get on the Port Authority Police, which, you know, we serve both states of New York and New Jersey. So I couldn't have asked for better, and ended up in Midtown Manhattan at the bus terminal, you know, the busiest bus terminal in the world, and got to do so much in my short career, but it was fulfilling. And I'm blessed to have been able to attain my dream, live it. Unfortunately, it was torn from me. But then, you know, like I said in the book, I share with children that, you know, sometimes your dreams, you get to them and they're torn from you. You're going to have to find a new dream. And that's what I did. I continued on in being a father. And, you know, with it being Father's Day, I want every father out there to know that you are a hero to your children, and make sure that you make the right decisions, because those kids are watching you. And like I tell people, I'm not comfortable with the word hero. The only hero I want to be to is to my two girls, Bianca and Olivia, and I'm blessed to have them and to be here today with them.
It was actually your children, you told me earlier when we had a talk about your entire 9/11 story, but you said it was your children who really inspired you to overcome PTSD, which was
Well,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And, I just want to make sure everybody understands the word overcome is not part of PTSD. It's something you learn to live with. It's very important that people understand that because you're never going to overcome it. It's just something that's part of us and we have to learn to manage it. But yes, especially my daughter, Bianca, again, I walked into a room and asked her, does daddy yell a lot? And she said, yeah, daddy, you scare me. And that motivated me to take on the fight of mental health, of making sure that I'm a good father, because as fathers, we have to realize that our actions have consequences. Our kids are looking at us. The way we treat them is the way they're eventually going to treat other people. So my children have been a big influence on me on, learning to live with PTSD, controlling it, making sure that I'm happy every day. And this book here, shows that love for my children, shows my love for my country, shows my love for other people. And like I said, on Father's Day today, I tell every father that we have a big, big job because we're role models. You might not think you are, but you are a role model. And our kids love us. They look up to us. We love our moms to death. But there's a comfort that you as a father give your son, your daughter, and they'll always say, "That's my dad." And so be a good dad out there. And I always say, what is courage? Courage is doing what you have to do when you have to do it. And for me, confronting PTSD was something I needed to do for my family, for my daughters, for my wife, and I'm blessed I've been able to do that.
And you told me that mainly manifested itself in explosions of anger.
Yes, unfortunately for me, my PTSD it manifested itself in anger. I would get angry. I was angry about not being able to help my fellow officers that passed, getting all the people home that day. Just a lot of anger, and I would have these outbursts, and I didn't even know it was happening. To be honest with you, we recently just finishing up my other book, and with my friend and co-author Dr. Michael Motes, and he would even explain, you didn't even realize you had it. And I tell that to every father out there. We're under a lot of stress, especially you're trying to pay the bills at the end of the month. Take notice of how you act. You take notice if you're blowing up because of anger. It affects our families. It's very important to really realize that. And I tell people, listen, you don't have to have a traumatic event to have PTSD. The stress of life alone could give you a certain amount of PTSD. Everybody associates with just, military first responders. No, you as a human being who's working two jobs, trying to make ends meet, dealing with COVID. Yeah, you have a certain level of post-traumatic stress disorder. So just remember, like I tell everybody, you're not alone out there. And that's why we wrote this book. I mean, I want kids to understand growing up that the lessons in here should strengthen them and let them know that they're not alone. It takes a village. I could not have done this book without Charles, without a doubt. So I tell everybody, it takes a village. There are very few folks that can do everything by themselves, so don't be afraid to reach out, talk to somebody. And if you're a dad that's going through a tough time, talk to your wife, talk to somebody. Make sure you talk to somebody. Just you're not alone. A lot of people are going through what you're going through.
Charles, it seems to me, it just hit me that there's another children's book that needs to be written, and that's about surviving PTSD. Now, Will is one of two people, Charles, I've spoken to in my life who has referred to secondhand PTSD, which is not actually a recognized psychiatric disorder. But what it is that the children who are living with parents who are suffering from PTSD then start imitating that behavior, not knowing they are imitating that behavior, because as we all know as parents, it isn't what we tell our children, it's what our children see that they learn from. Thus, generation to generation, alcoholism, drug abuse, PTSD. Charles, your thoughts?
As a dad, I have a son and a daughter, and I just know that they're sponges and that they're always watching and listening very carefully, even when you think they're not. On the moments where, you're just explaining, your perspective or why you want them to do something. They hear your words and your reasoning, and I find them always coming back to me. So your words are so right, Shelley. It's just you got to be careful and thoughtful. And I'm hearing Will too about just trying to remain relaxed even when moments are tense, because how we treat them is very important. It's gonna affect how they treat other people. You know, it's a learning process.
Will, how old are your daughters now?
So my oldest is 23, about to be 24 next month, and then Olivia, who was born on my birthday, and was my birthday gift, November 26th.
Oh,
She will be 20 this November. So she's actually wanting to come back from college on September 11th. I told her no, stay at college. You know, she's down in Auburn, Alabama. We're proud of her being down there. Both my oldest graduated from Auburn, now my second's in Auburn. So War Eagle to everybody out there. But you know, they're my legacy. They really are. I'm both so blessed to be able to be with them, to have experienced them growing up. And, you know, like I tell everybody, when tragedy hits you, you got to find the light out of a tragedy, or it's just out of tragedy. For me, unbeknownst to me, I look back now and I realize, okay, I almost died. I suffered, lost a lot of friends, but I also been blessed to grow up, watch them grow up. I've been to every event pretty much of their lives. And that to me was golden, you know. So God works in mysterious ways. Events work in mysterious ways. And I just want people to know that, you know, I'm no different than anybody out there. So as a father, I am no different and no better than anybody else. And for the people that read our book, especially the parents who I hope pick up our book, Immigrant American Survivor, will read it, share it with their children. Uh, yes, we want them to know about September 11th, as all American history should be learned. But I want them to learn the good lessons here. And one of the things that I've been blessed to get feedback from is parents love the little section we have in here about bullying. You know, bullying is something that, you know, again, I lump it in with evil, murder, abuse, bullying. It's a form of evil. And we talk about it briefly in the book, but the parents have come back and said, we really love that part because it allows me to talk to my child about bullying and understanding that you're going to confront this somehow, some way. And sometimes you're even the bully and you don't even know it. So it's just about being conscious about how we treat people. So that's what we really love about the book.
what was your experience with bullyism?
When I was a kid, goes both ways. I still remember, and I'm not ashamed of this. I'll be honest with you. I went to a Catholic school, and there was a young man who was probably 2 grades older than me, and he had been in a bad fire, and he was, you know, back then, you know, you're talking 70s, late 70s. I'm in grammar school, and we would all make fun of him. And I remember one morning, I was just like, and I said some bad things to him, and as I walked away, I felt terrible. I did. I felt terrible. Like, me, why are you making fun of him just to be like everybody else? I remember apologizing to him, and that meant the world to me. And there were times that I got bullied. You know, there was a kid in class who was bigger than everybody else, and you know, he would like tell us what to do, and I hated that. I hated that feeling, you know. And I actually stood up to him, and we actually back then we had a fist fight. And what I learned was that he was still bigger than me, and he beat me in the fight. But I felt that, hey, I confronted this, and I'm not scared anymore. And believe it or not, after that, we became good friends. It was almost like he realized he was doing something wrong, and we became good friends. You know what I mean? It's childhood stuff, but today it seems to affect kids in a long term effect. And we need to be able to tell kids that it's okay. You're gonna either be bullied, and sometimes be careful. You could be the bully, and we have to teach them at a young age how to overcome bullying and learn to get past it. You know, it's just, in my opinion, it's part of life. It's just human beings doing what they do. But we have to strengthen our kids. We got to make them tough. I guess I'm an old Hackensack kid. You know, we believe in thick skin.
The bullying is even more severe for kids today because of social media.
It is something as parents we have to look at their devices and their social media interactions and just really teach them as much as possible, just to be careful, and whether it's old school bullying, and Will and I went through that, you know, when we were young. And I think that the interesting part about that is, as a kid, you don't realize that the person bullying you is really a troubled person, and they're doing it for reasons that there's something broken inside that makes them feel like they have to do this to improve how they feel. Of course, it doesn't work. They probably, at the end of the day, don't feel better. And but I think whether it's social media or just in person, it's just about really talking to your kids and discussing these issues. I mean, bullying was a big issue for me as a kid, and I actually wrote a book about it the night the bullies were bullied, and it was the first book I started drawing. And so it's an important, you know, it's important topic, and I'm really glad that Will shared his insight with this.
Well,
Yeah, I think bullying today is probably worse than it was back when we were growing up in the 70s, 80s. Because back then, I mean, it was in your face. Today, unfortunately, kids don't really get in your face anymore. They do it on social media, which is more hurtful and it spreads more. I mean, remember, if there was a rumor in your school, it stayed in your school. Now, today, a rumor goes on the internet and it goes everywhere. So I could see where the mental stress is way, way higher than when we were younger. And I believe social media is a double-edged sword. It has a lot of good to offer, and it showed us in the past year that when you sit home idly, a lot of people just have time to think of stupid things. And our book really showing kids that listen, it's okay to be different. It's okay to not agree with everybody, and you can make new friends. You can always seek out new people that are going to be good for you. And you never know. Some of the people who you thought were bad for you come around. We all change. We all grow. And it's acceptance. And that's what, again, this book shows you is about accepting people, understanding people, but most of all, treat people the way you want to be treated. That's a lesson that I think as fathers, we need to really instill, because my parents instilled in me. My father always said, remember, treat somebody the way you want to be treated. You're going to be okay. And if that person's not treating you the way you would treat someone, then you don't need to probably stop having relations with that person. And it's important as fathers. We again are examples, and we should be leaders, and we need more leadership, uh, especially with social media. And that goes back to sitting down and maybe reading this book to your child, making sure at dinner time we shut the cell phones off and we talk and make sure we're in our children's lives, what's going on. Even if you don't understand the technology they're talking about, just sit there and listen. Listening as a parent is such a great tool and something where we learn a lot about our kids and help them, with whatever issues they're having.
well, I think everyone would like to hear from you just what made you hold on? You were trapped for hours and hours. You were pinned, and your sergeant was going in and out of consciousness. At one point, you told me that you were about to let go. What made you hold on?
Well, for me, it was, I always use the three words: faith, hope, and love. And I don't preach religion. I tell people I'm Catholic. My faith came into it where I had a vision of Jesus. And when I snapped out of that vision, I had a fire in my belly, and I decided I'm not going to give up. If I'm going to give up, I'll die trying, which gave me a sense of freedom. Like I'm not going to let the terrorists, or as I call them, the cowards, win. And I kept fighting for my family, for my sergeant, for my country, but most importantly for myself. And I use those three words. Again, I don't preach religion. I tell kids faith, hope, and love. Those three things. Faith in your religion, if you have one. I don't care what religion it is. And if you're an atheist or you don't believe in a God, then faith in yourself, or find faith in something. Hope. You never give up hope. That is universal. I don't care where you come from in this globe. Always have hope. Hope for whatever your dreams are, your goals are, and love. We need love in this world. On 9/11, in those buildings, in the midst of evil, I saw so much love. I saw people, total strangers, taking care of themselves. So those three words, faith, hope, and love, and we talk about that in this book, are three important words. And they're not passive words. They're action words. They're words that you have to have. And again, I tell people I am no different than you. If you're a dad out there struggling, I am no different than you. I have struggled. Like I said, I bring it down to the easiest level where people can understand, where it's like, hey, man, I'm stressed out paying the mortgage, paying the car bill, paying the bills. It stresses people out, and then you can escalate there to the World Trade Center falling. And that's why I tell people, everybody has their own World Trade Center. It's what we do with ourselves. But if you have those three words, faith, hope, and love, you will overcome anything. I promise you that.
The book, it is a children's book, but it's a wonderful book to read to your children and your grandchildren. Immigrant, American Survivor, a little boy who grew up to be all three. It is the story of retired Port Authority police officer Will Jimeno. It is co-written and illustrated by Charles Ricciardi. And I will be grateful to see you tomorrow morning on the Jim Kerr Rock and Roll Morning Show, Q104.3.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.